Today, we're going to have a discussion about growing wealth in uncertainty with my friend Edward, who is based in Malaysia. Welcome back to Investing with Daren. And I publish new interviews every month, so click the subscribe button to stay updated. Ed, thanks for being here. Can you share the
Hi,
audience
Daren.
who you are?
So my name is Edward Ling. I'm based in Malaysia, but I have about 17 years experience working in the tech industry. So not really a financial expert per se, but I'll say I'm a middle class, average Joe in Malaysia. And it's a pleasure to be on the show with you today, Daren.
Likewise, Ed, and your voice basically represents most of us. If you're a financial guru, you won't be watching this channel. They would have very different lifestyles. How will you rate your current financial literacy from 1 as a noob to 10, you write the books for Warren Buffett?
Yeah, I would say between really, to be honest, to be 3 to 4. I'm not sure if that's humble, but the reality is, I think at least in the education system that I was in, my national school, public schools, all the way to private universities, I think there was really not much education on financial literacy. So where I got my knowledge is really through friends like yourself, your channel. That's recently, but over the years, it was mostly through parents and also really having conversations or reading books, right? Robert Kiyosaki's books, etc. But because I'm a tech person, I never really invested much time as I should, especially when we should really invest more time to understand these matters because it's money, right? And money matters in life, but we don't spend enough time, and I'm guilty of that. That's why my financial literacy is quite low, I would say, at this time. But regardless, even with the low literacy, I try, right? I try my best to invest. And I think I'm okay lah because I earn a steady income. But I think the key here is really to see how we can multiply it. And that's why I follow your channel. Big fan of you, Daren. And
Thanks,
hopefully we can learn together, learn from each other as we go along.
Agree. And like the key word you pointed out earlier was like currently earn a steady income. But then our goal is what happens when we do not earn a steady income or choose not to earn a steady income. And the way we think about finances also depends a lot on where we are, our current situation. How would you describe the current situation in Malaysia today?
So I think the current situation in Malaysia, this is recorded in August, 2021. It's actually quite dire, I would say. So just yesterday, there was the highest number of deaths in Malaysia. So 360 people died in a single day because of COVID, right? And when you look at the numbers, you can Google it and research it, but generally unemployment is at its highest. So different reports show different rates, anywhere between 5 to 10%. So you can multiply that to hundreds of thousands or millions. So you also see that with the local movement. They call it kita jaga kita, which directly translated means we take care of each other. For people to be able to call out for help, you can raise a white flag if you have nothing to eat. We're talking about bread and butter issues. When you really need help, people will donate food to you, food stuff to you, so you don't have to starve, right? So that's how the situation is right now. Highest COVID cases as well in the known history. Anywhere between 16 to 20,000 cases a day, which really makes the Singapore cases look really small. But there's also hope, right? So there's the dark side of it, which is numbers are bad. But on the good side, the COVID vaccination rates in Malaysia is one of the highest in the world per capita, right? So that's good news. So hopefully in a couple of months, 2 to 3 months time, we expect things to recover, but nobody can really tell.
And in times of crisis, many people do crave stability. Because of COVID, the past 18 months, like how has this changed the macroeconomic environment in Malaysia?
So I want to start by saying that a lot of people, are also depressed, suicide rates are higher. But for me, the reason why I'm coming on this show is to tell people there's also hope. We must look on the bright side of things. There is always opportunity in crisis. So personally for me, when you look at before we talk about the macroeconomic situation, I want to share that, for a long time, I've been looking to invest, let's say the property market for the last 10, 15 years since I ever started working, right? And there wasn't really an opportunity or window where prices of property like stagnated or reduced. So, and people say these kind of cycles take, 20 years, 30 years, depending again on who you read and what kind of thing. But I would like to say that this is an opportunity that a lot of us hopefully have been saving for the rainy days, but it's an opportunity for you to restart and kickstart the investments, right? But when you look at the overall macroeconomic, the numbers obviously just look terrible, right? So the economy is down, again, employment is the highest. People are very negative with the outlook of the economy. But I think it's mainly because of the instability of the government. It's not really in the people. People are very disciplined. as far as I know, majority of the urban folks are following the SOPs. Nobody is outrightly, like sometimes in certain countries where they're going out to the streets and saying I have a freedom to not wear my mask. Right here, it's people are naturally quite more compliant and understand the need, but it's when you have a lack of trust in the leadership. So earlier, Malaysia was handling the COVID situation very well. There was a lot of trust in the government and what they were doing, but the trust got lost over time because of the, I would say the flip-flopping of policies. You make policies, then you change it. Today, people are very confused. Even I myself get very confused. We were on an acronym kind of lockdown mode, like RMCO, MCO, etc. And then now you have got phase 1, phase 2. So people even lost track of the rules. So we're like, where are we? Why we keep flopping? And sometimes, we have the highest number of cases. Just yesterday, there was relaxation of SOPs in states where there was on phase 2. So people get very confused. So what's really going on? And of course, there is also the voices from the medical scene. People are saying that we should not sacrifice lives, innocent lives, just for the economy. So there's always going to be this tension, right? And also there's also on the schooling. So I have kids. And there's always a tension. Some people are saying open schools, don't open schools. But for me now, I look at data. So I like to look at data. And earlier, probably last year, you didn't see a lot of deaths in children. But today, that because of the variants coming up, you see a higher increase. So there's going to be a lot of this tension and a lot of uncertainty. So I actually sometimes look back and look at Singapore government. I think it's a good example. While a lot of people may not agree with the policies, at least there's stability. They come with a policy, they explain it, and then they just implement it. But they explain it. They take time to explain it. Whether you agree or not, it's a different story. But I think that those are the stability that you need. So Malaysia really just needs that form of stability. I think we'll be okay. But that is really a question mark. So we don't know. And that's what's causing the difficulty in even forecasting in terms of investments or macroeconomy situation at this moment. Yeah.
Like you mentioned, right, that the number of deaths, like 360 people yesterday. Like every death is one too many. And beyond the deaths, there's also a lot of pain that may not be easily seen, like mental stress, mental trauma, mental well-being, people losing their jobs, people wondering, how do I maintain my wealth? What happened to my retirement planning? How do you experience that among your circle of friends, people you know? How's that situation?
So I'll say I'm very blessed because, like I say, I'm middle class. So in Malaysia, they typically split it between the B40, they call it the below 40% of income. We have the middle 40, which is M40, which is somewhere where I am, and the top 20, the T20. So I'm between the middle income and the top. So in this circle, it's, if you look at the world data, the richest people get richer. LVMH, the founder of LV, it's like the richest man between him and Jeff Bezos, right? So I guess for the upper people and the more comfortable people, our fridges are full. So we're very blessed. But I'm actually more concerned because in an economy like Malaysia, we rely heavily on the rest of the people to make sure they're okay, because that's where stability comes from the economy, right? If the lower income can't get stable jobs, there's going to be more unemployment, which leads to more crime, etc., which means a lot more depression, and just going to be generally worse for even the rich people because crime is going to increase, etc. So I think the reality on the ground is, even as I sometimes in the breaks in lockdown when we are allowed to go out exercise, and I just take a cycle around. Because I'm in cycling, right? And I see that even in the urban areas, it's impacted because in the urban areas in Malaysia, it's always intertwined and there's always pockets of more lower income flats. And when you go to these areas, you do see white flags being raised. You also do see, but on the good side, you also see people providing. So people are just setting up places for you to go to help. Like this saw recently in an area nearby. People just put stuff out there and put a signboard that says, if you need anything like food stuff, you just come and take. You don't have to ask questions. Nobody's going to question everything. Just take, so clothes, food stuff. So it really reflects the reality of today. Like I've never seen this in my entire life living in Malaysia. I spent 2 years in Singapore, but majority of my life has been spent in Malaysia. I've never seen this unprecedented. I've never seen such desperation that people need to ask for help, raise flags. It means that people, the day income earners have lost their jobs. And there is no clear direction because we don't know when the lockdown will lift, right? Restaurant owners don't know what to do with their workers. Do I fire them? Do I retrench them? Do I keep them? But for my circle of friends, like my comfort zone, very blessed, is that I think we're still okay as long as we have jobs. But that's also not certain, right? If you're so fortunately for me, I'm in tech, so the chances of losing a job is less likely. But let's say if you're in airlines or travel and tourism, or even in events, then you haven't had a job for more than a year, right?
Yes.
So then If you have a spouse who's working, then you're okay. But if not, you have to find something to do. So a lot of people go into like entrepreneurship, they sell food stuff, and I support a lot of these businesses, right? Buy kaya lah, nasi lemak, nasi biryani. But I get worried because everybody seems to be just going to F&B. If I lose my job as an air stewardess, I then just start a food business. I'm not sure that's very sustainable because then you have great competition. In fact, the way I think about it, macroeconomic, you're creating more competition for the existing restaurants out there. And then they also get affected. So because the money, I know every day we eat 3 meals. Some people may have to cut to 1 meal, 2 meals, but there's only so much meals we can eat. And if you study, it's great for you, but you may be taking the business away from another business, which is okay. I mean, it's an economy, but when you think about it, it's not your traditional way of thinking of economy, right? So you can't really apply rules that we used to study in the books, even in terms of investment, right?
And in times like this, for some Malaysians, investing is a luxury. Like it's not something that they're even thinking about today, this week, or this month. And that also brings about more of the inequality because we know that investing drives wealth growth. And how has COVID changed your views or look about investing? You mentioned earlier that there are opportunities and you've seen certain pockets of growth. What's this to you?
So I think the way I looked at it is that it's an opportunity like we've never seen before. But you're right. So before we go to the way I look at it, it's that some people are just worried about feeding their families, right? So they don't have the opportunity to invest. But for some of us who have the opportunity, I think it's a good opportunity and we should take opportunity of this. But the way I look at it is different. So the whole, I have friends working in the banking industry and, the whole thinking that the banks couldn't work from home. It's all been dispelled. So many, legacy thinking has been changed because of COVID, not because of a certain particular person, but because of the disease. So they said last time in the banks, you can't work from home for security reasons, etc. Today, all of them can work from home. But it's changed the way you think about it. So let's say when it comes to investing in property, which is something I've been looking out for very long. So I have a few property, but I want to invest some more. But when I look at it, this whole change in conundrum where you are able to now work from home has made the CBD or Central Business District theory kind of like a bit not so solid anymore, right? Because today, if I can work from home, I don't necessarily need to stay very close to my office, which is typically in the CBD.
Yep.
So things like that is number one. Number two, in terms of, I live in a condominium, like high rise, but in Malaysia, there's a lot of landed. But that has also changed because when we think about COVID, it's not going away anytime soon. But people are thinking about inconvenience. The facilities I pay for can't be used, like the swimming pools are closed because of extended lockdown, or the lifts, which were never designed for only 4 people per lift. Today, the waiting time is much, much longer. Right, so even the inconvenience of living, like it's almost now an inconvenience to live in a condo because in Malaysia we do have the luxury of land. So that's also changed in terms of some people thinking. So maybe I don't want to live in a condo because I want more open space. And even in if it's a condo, you are good because the space is big. But you think about flats. If you look at Malaysia statistics, there's been a lot of outbreaks in flats because of the close proximity of neighbors. So with the Delta variant and everything, there's also chances that it can spread, COVID can spread higher. So all this has kind of changed the way we think about it. And even if you look at the real estate for offices, Malaysia, we are building so many buildings. We're going to have a glut. My prediction is going to have a glut of office space if it's not already, because we're building so much office space, but companies are going to have a need for less office space and save costs because they're going to have probably a ratio of, 3-day work in office, 2-day work from home, because that has already been accepted. Because for more than a year, a lot of companies have been working fully from home, and none of the businesses have faced a lot of serious challenges, right, with working from home. So that's going to change.
Agree. And with hybrid working that more and more companies are adopting, like most of us will be working from home for the rest of our careers. I have a hypothesis that potentially even suburban housing in Malaysia would have a higher appreciation rate than urban downtown CBD housing. So that sounds like one potential change in the way that you think about investing. Any other big changes for you?
So I think the other one in changes is also in terms of the ease of investment. So people have a lot more time at home, and the tools that's readily available, again, changed due to COVID, is that e-wallets and even apps, which I shouldn't name, but like apps, the ease of investments, it's all on our phone. So we can invest, we can monitor things. So I think, again, this is something that allows us to really freely invest. Like in the previous times, before COVID, let's say you want to buy a property, you have to go to the house, they'll open the door for you. But today, even the agents, because of the lockdown, they're forced, because I don't know why they never did it in the past, but now they're forced to take videos of the house, take photos. So it's making it much easier. I can see 10 houses in a day, as last time maybe 1 or 2 houses I drive around, right? So I think these things, the ease of access to investment, it almost becomes like there's no excuse not to be able to invest. It's a matter of whether we're using our time to watch, Netflix, or using the time to watch a channel like Daren, right? Investing with Daren, to learn about this thing. But I think that's no longer an excuse. With the widespread availability of tools to invest, there is no longer an excuse to be able to make your money work for you. Yeah.
And like what Edward just mentioned earlier, like if you have the opportunity to actually sit down and watch Netflix, that means you are in a position to start investing, no matter how small, even if it's just $100. The people who can't even watch Netflix, they wouldn't be thinking about investing right now, and rightfully so. This isn't for everyone. Like Maslow hierarchy of needs, focusing on our survival, our health, our well-being first before moving up. Investing is something that goes up the hierarchy of needs. When we zoom out in the longer term, how has all of this uncertainty changed the way you think about retirement planning?
So for me, because I have a family and I think about kids, so I think it's changed a lot of the way that we thought. For a lot of us, we thought the kids would go to school. Today, they are from home. They're studying from home. And there's a lot more opportunities for you to engage. So my thought was always is how nice if, let's say I had made my investments 10 years ago, and today I could take kind of like a break, a gap year, where I take a couple of years to spend time and teach my kids, because it's not the same, right? The education that the kids get is very different from going to school. I'm a strong believer in physical classes. I think online classes are great, but they will never substitute the interaction you have with the teacher in school and the experiences. So for example, my first experience with money was going to school, to the canteen and pay cash, right? They learn how to count. Oh, I gave 40 cents. I gave 1 ringgit. I need to take 60 cents back. If you don't know how to do maths, then you're going to lose money. So that was my first interaction. I'm teaching my kids the same, but today my kids can't go to school and they can't have that. Of course, today we still have the physical money, but one day they will also go away potentially, right? But there's still the opportunity for people to touch and feel, and for the kids to learn that. But having said that, when it comes about retirement, so I wish I had invested earlier so I can kind of take a gap and spend time with the kids and educate them. However, I'm working a 9 to 6 job, and I have to split myself, right? I'm still at home. My kids are there. They think I make money by looking at the screen and having conference calls. They don't get it because they're very young. It's really funny, right? And when you speak to kids about this, then you get a lot of interesting insights, because they think daddy makes money. I'm like a call center agent. For a lot of us professionals, either you're a trainer or you're whatever, but you're sitting in conference calls, right?
Yes.
Then the kids come to you and say, Daddy, how do you make money? Because I tell them I'm working, and they say, why are you working? Because I need to make money and feed you, put food on the table, right? Then they go, but you're just attending meetings. So to them, it's very nice to just attend meetings and make calls. That's like, wow. So it's really insights when you speak to the kids and they observe you working. It's really interesting that they give a little more insight. I wish I had more time. So in terms of my retirement planning, I wish I can retire early and spend more time with the kids, because I think that's nice to have. That's why the reason I'm on this show, because I realized it's never too late to start. But my investments, I'm very risk averse. So I'm really, really the saver type. But I never really doubled my money. And that's why watching your channel is really helpful. I think a lot of tips that you give, it's very, very insightful, because these things, I again never had education in school. It's never formal training. It's all learning as you go along, trial and error. And it's again very risky, because in the earlier days, I don't come from like a very, very well-to-do family. It's tough to put your hard-earned money and let it burn, right? Because investments means you could lose it. In the higher the risk, the higher the return, but also the higher the loss. So for me, I'm very risk averse, especially when you're a family. You don't want to put too much risk. So I tend to do more savings than investments. But when you look at the retirement plan, that's not going to get you there. So again, the question is, can I retire earlier? Because I think there is more opportunity today to do that with the tools, the information that's available, YouTube channels, etc. There's actually no excuse for us to really learn and spend more time to make money while we sleep.
Agree. When you talk about retirement, what would you say would be a decent, comfortable level of retirement funds to retire in Malaysia for 20 to 30 years?
So I think that comes back to you. And I think, Daren, you have a previous video, which I saw, which you calculated. So I think it comes back to the person, right? I think the basis is you factor in how much your lifestyle is when you want to retire. And then you factor in the inflation rate. So let's say in Malaysia, I don't know, 8,000 ringgit sounds like a very middle class kind of a number. I'm just throwing a number out there, right?
Yeah.
And if you can survive on 8,000 ringgit, of course you have to factor in inflation. So over time, just put in 7%, or if that's very high, maybe 5%. And if you can survive on 8,000 ringgit a month, then I think that's something that you can build passive income towards. So I mean, I give you an example. My dream was always this, but I'm not there yet. My dream at least 10 years ago when I started working, or 17 years ago when I started working, was to have passive income. The dream was to have like 20, 30 houses, so that each of them give you a rental income. And then you can then retire. And I can do things that when I say retire, doesn't mean that I don't do anything. It's to do what you truly love and believe in. I mean, not all of us, especially watching your channel, has the opportunity to really do what they love. If I was a football player, I wish I had that luxury, because my job is to play, right? But most of us, professionals, you do a job to support what you love, either photography, cycling, right? So very few of us have the opportunity to really do what we love. So when I say retirement, so for me, it was to build that passive income. So I could be, for example, to travel the world, maybe start a travel blog, or to spend time with my kids. Or in my case, I have a big passion for serving people. So I want to build community. So my passion was really to join like the local councils and to fix potholes on the road and things like that. It's very strange, I know, but for me, I gain satisfaction in making the community better, because I drive on the roads, but nobody really has the time to, for example, fix the playground with the swing book. At least in Malaysia, I know Singapore very efficient, but here there's lots of opportunities for us to contribute and make things better for others, right? Or even giving education to the poor. If I could free myself and teach the poorer kids, because education is really the basis out of poverty, right? I think that's something that 99% of us will agree. If you don't, you should be hopefully you can be educated, because I really believe that education is the way out of poverty. If you can't read and write, as my grandparents were, they were in poverty. And I'm very fortunate to say that, and I'm third generation Malaysian ethnic Chinese, but my grandparents just 2 generations ago were illiterate. And for them to build the base for my parents to give me the education, and today I can claim to be middle class, I think that is really a proof that education is the way out of poverty. Again, I'm not there yet, and every generation it wants to be better. So for my kids, I know I've asked them to watch this channel. They're very young, they don't get it. But I say, this is my friend, Uncle Daren. And they say, what's he talking about? He's talking about money. Money is very important. And then I say, you need to learn maths, because maths is important for you to count money. You need to learn percentages, interest, all this. It's all about making money. I say, don't you want to make money? They say, yeah, sure. So I asked my son, like, what does he want to do? He want to buy a sports car. I say, sports car, you need money. But you see, Uncle Daren, he wants to buy Tesla, right? So again, it's just educating them from very young, because I don't think my parents, not any fault of theirs, but they never had the time to even talk about these things. But today I have. Again, I'm at home on a holiday watching YouTube with them, and I will try to watch more educational stuff. And for me, these are all opportunities to be able to educate the younger as well, as we all move along the journey of progress of financial freedom.
And in these tough times, as we work from home, kids study from home, while there's a lot of tensions and our kids can drive us crazy from time to time, it's also a gift. How else will we get the chance to spend even 1-2 hours extra a day with our kids? It's a blessing for many parents, even though it's also a big headache for us. You mentioned earlier that education is the way out of poverty. And some people believe that investing is the way to transformational wealth growth. Right? If you really want to transform your wealth, the way that everyone does it is different, but investing matters. How would you see the biggest risk for investing for Malaysians today? Some people will say it's the currency, some will say it's the stability of the political system. What do you see is the biggest risk investing for Malaysians now?
So I'm not an economic expert, so I'm just like say a layman. But if you ask me, I think it's the education, because when we look at, even when we say investing today, everybody thinks it's dollar and cents.
Yeah.
But again, talking about the latest trends, if you look at, you can look at investing differently. If I'm investing time in my child, they could grow up to become somebody who knows, be the next billionaire, right? Example. But you look at the recent trends in terms of the Olympics, you look at how China invests in their Olympians from a very young age, and they see success. Again, it's not necessarily monetary value, but today, again, we need to throw out the traditional way of thinking. If I invest time like yourself, Daren, making content on YouTube, you can also make money, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I can be an influencer, and they can make me money, because I'm working in the industry and I see influencers make money as well. So I think the biggest danger is the risk that people think that investment, there's only one way. There's one path, and it means that I must put it in fixed deposit or whatever, in Bitcoin or whatever. I think that's the biggest danger, that people don't educate themselves enough and do enough research in order to find what's best for them, right? Because I've seen people as well. Again, COVID changed the way we think, right? I've seen a lot of rich Malaysians unfortunately pass away due to COVID. So it's also thinking about where maybe in your next episode, Daren, you have investing in health.
Yeah.
Because if you are not healthy also, what's the point of all the money sitting in the bank? We've seen a lot of cases in Malaysia, unfortunately, due to high death rates. We've had a lot of rich people in Malaysia die because of COVID. So all the money in the world in the bank couldn't save them. With the best doctors, with the best healthcare. And Malaysia healthcare is not that bad. Of course, it's overloaded right now, but we're very fortunate. Our healthcare is very, very decent relative to other countries. But still, with all this, even in private hospitals, with the best doctors, there's been so many cases that we've seen that unfortunately all the money in the bank couldn't save your life, right? So I think that's the biggest risk. But having said that, I think I want to offer some thoughts. And I say today it's different from the day that I guess we grew up, where information was very difficult. We had to go to the library, borrow the books. Today, with the information is all on the net. It's a matter of whether you want to spend the time to look for it. Whether it's the latest cryptocurrency, the information is all there, and whether how you decipher what's true and what's not. And I tie this back to the risk again, because I see a lot of people passing on information which are not necessarily true, and they don't know how to verify whether it's true or not. I think that's a bigger danger, because whether it's for COVID, to solve COVID or to prevent COVID, or medicine that you may take, it's controversial, so I won't say what it is, but whether it's fake news or not, people are not doing the due diligence to check whether it's true or not. And if you can't do that for something health related, how are you going to do it for investments? That's why there's scams. That's why you get scammed. You put money in places that you thought can make a lot of money. To me, it's like if it's too good to be true, it's probably not true, right? Like you say, the returns is like double or over time. Now, of course, you need to substantiate it. If I watch your channel and I see Tesla increase, all the data is there. And again, it's not like 500 times. It could, but it's very few. But it could be 5 times for Tesla stock, for example. But I think it's the process of people thinking, and that's the biggest risk, because too many times I've seen too many people, including educated people, making these kind of mistakes, and we are not able to kind of like self-correct or self-heal in the sense of self-check, right? And that's the biggest danger when it comes to investment.
And you mentioned earlier, right? Today it's so easy to find information. The big difference is in the past, like we had to go to a bank, go to the library and read up. Like we had to be very intentional about the information we seek. Right now, we wake up at 7 a.m. next to our bed. There's a wealth of content there. But then it also reduces our level of effort to seek it. So we value the information less, or we take it for more for granted, rather than really having a critical mind behind it. So the information is powerful, but it's also a double-edged sword. It's how we use it, the critical mind, think for ourselves, that matters. And when it comes to money, no one cares about our money as much as we do. Anyone can say anything on the internet, and what works for them may not work for you, your situation, your country, your family setting. With all of that, and you've touched a little bit on how you also invest in property, you're looking at other assets in the future. Today, one question that's top of mind for many Malaysians is, how do you allocate your investments between Malaysia and overseas?
So I wish I had a secret formula to that or a solution to that. But Daren, honestly, my journey is more by chance, because I had the opportunity to, for example, to work in Singapore. So for me, it was an opportunity because I had the opportunity to, for example, work in Singapore. And therefore, I had the opportunity to open bank accounts there, trading accounts there, etc. So for me, and I also work in a large tech company, and I have opportunity where they have stock options for company, and then it's traded in the US. And now I work like in the European, so there's also opportunity for that as well, right? But I think, Daren, hopefully along this journey through the channel, we want to help more Malaysians to be able to understand how to do that, right? Maybe it doesn't necessarily have to be like a secret formula, but maybe how one can start investing. But for me, actually, I think the biggest challenge is the weak. I wouldn't say weak, like the Malaysian ringgit. It's not very strong in terms of as a currency, right? So for every conversion that you change it, for example, to Sing dollar or US dollar, there's going to be some loss. The banks make some money. Maybe we can have a channel to teach people how to minimize, because the banks have to change money, etc. So I think that's the biggest challenge, because not necessarily everyone has a bank account overseas, right? Yeah. So maybe I have. So for me, it's much easier to do it. So how does one start on that? And I think the education really is very poor, because people don't really know how to do that. But people know how to trade locally, so they go in a local stock exchange. But everything is very local. Unfortunately for us, we are not very international thinking, which we should, because there's a lot more opportunities out there. If you hedge your ringgit overseas as well, it's also hedging against depreciation of the ringgit if you think it's going to depreciate, right? So again, there's a lot of opportunities there, but we are not educated enough to know how to do this. And that's why I've been commenting a lot on the channel to say, Daren, how can I buy US stock? Now, even for me, I want to do it, but I don't know how. And then there's tax implication. People get scared, US government tax, etc. That's a topic that you should cover in your future videos. So everyone subscribe to the page because we're going to talk about these things hopefully to Daren, and we're going to learn together on how we can do this, right?
Yes,
very
and
practically.
my friend Bunti, who also has his own YouTube channel on finance, originally from Malaysia as well. So shout out to you, Bunti. He called out, for most Malaysians, we use international products. We eat McDonald's, we wear Nike, we use Apple iPhones. So we use their products. Why aren't we investing in them as well?
Exactly.
What's the mindset about? Like, do you think it's an education thing? It's an uncertainty thing? Like, what do you think is some of the drivers holding people back then?
I'm not really sure actually. Nobody has really done a study for it, but I think that's the problem in itself. We don't do enough studies to understand the psyche of people. But potentially, Malaysia is very diverse, as you know. It's a very diverse country with a lot of mindset. So there's, again, depending where the person is. But if you even ask, like for example, the Malaysian Bursa, the stock exchange, right? They will see that the investments of the younger people is less. They're trying to say, how come last time, like our parents all used to invest in stock market, but even then, people have like reduced the investments in stock market. So I think it's mainly down to the education. Like even for myself personally, I had to read books and ask friends, but still, without actually doing it, you don't have the conviction because you say, oh, the person's buying this stock. And I miss a lot of boats because sometimes it's also speculation, but sometimes it's good. So for example, Malaysia, because of the COVID, they have a lot of glove manufacturers, and there was a big like boom, everyone was pumping money in, but people become too late. Then it becomes hype. So even I personally made a mistake. Well, I went buy it, but it's too late already. When I went buy, the prices are the highest. Then you go into the highest, then you lose money. Then you get burned. Then you get, hey, all this investment made me lose money. I don't want to invest anymore. But you see, because it's again back to lack of education and the timing, right? Because timing is essentially, buying is very easy. It's the timing. And you need to have a bit more foresight and understand the company and also factor in some form of speculation. I mean, truth be told, Malaysia is sometimes a speculative market.
Yeah.
Certain investments are speculative. It could be like cryptocurrency, I believe, in my personal view, is quite speculative. So we need to understand this before we go in. But again, I feel that we don't take enough time to understand this. And I think this is the biggest stumbling block for us to invest and make money.
You call education a few times. I also want to highlight, there are more and more Malaysians who are also on YouTube with their own finance channels. Specifically, like two top of mine would be Suyin Ong, who does her own investing channel. I'll link it down below. And I think another one that's been around for a bit longer is Mr. Money TV. I'll link that channel down below as well. And these are just two of probably a good number of Malaysians who are trying to bring education to the rest of the country, not just for local investing, but also overseas investing. And in this time of uncertainty, what advice do you have for Malaysians going through these tough times?
I think, like I said, it's very easy to fall down to depression, and the numbers show that, the data show that. But I think if you are okay and you're able to watch this channel, I think you're okay. But like Daren said, if you are really starving, you won't have time to watch this channel. So you're okay. So you should look at it on the bright side. And I think we need to be more optimistic. And I know it's depressing. Even I get depressed many times, but we really need to have hope, because hope is the only thing that honestly, if you are depressed, it's like you give up, right? Even when investment, you also need hope, right? Because if you, let's say you buy the wrong stock and it crashes terribly, you need to have hope that one day it will recover, or maybe you could decide to cut loss so that you can invest in other things to make back that money, right? So I think it's really the mindset. You need to have the mental strength. And again, learning from sports, if you watch the Olympics, again, if you can watch the Olympics, it's great, but a lot of mental challenges. Mental health is the latest. It's been around for the longest time, but thankfully, recently, you've seen cases of people talking about it openly, like Simone Biles of the US Olympic gymnastics team. And all these things is not new, but it's very good that we need to have the mental health. We need to make sure that we're in the right mental state, especially when we're investing. Because as soon as you lose your mental health and you get very emotional, I think that's a terrible state to be in. Daren, if you agree with me, you start getting very emotional. Like, imagine you're buying stock and then you need to sell because you need to make money, but then it drops and then you're like so scared because, oh, I lost money. And then you get suicidal and all that. So that's terrible. I think we all need to have hope. And there's a lot of opportunity, like I said. We just need to look for it. For me personally, like I said, I've been looking out for more property. I'm not, again, the areas I look for, I always wish that the prices would tank and drop, but there's still stability. People still can afford it. People are not like losing jobs by the hordes, which will cause then the property market to drop, especially in good areas, which people can hold. So you know that there's still hope. It's not like everyone's bankrupt, right? There are still rich people and still holding the property. But the good news is like the prices have been stagnant. So for the last 30 years, I've never seen the prices stagnant for so long, over a year. Some may drop slightly. Of course, I wish it would drop like 50%, then I buy, like monopoly, buy 10 houses, which is my dream. But I saw it stagnate. So there's opportunity. And again, a lot of us, we may never have this opportunity again. Who knows? Again, it could be the bright side. But I really hope that COVID will come once every 100 years. And something like this is an opportunity for those. It's also a good opportunity if you think about it in terms of investment. I always look at the big brands in Malaysia, for example, those people who made it right in the early years. So for example, you brought in Honda, Bunsiu, the distributor of Honda, super rich. Air Asia, you were the biggest airline, also with 2 planes, right? But you make it, but there's not many opportunities that we get to make an impact. So maybe today you're thinking of a startup, let's say education, right? And you want to do it, I think you should just do it, especially if you have money to spend. The investment does not necessarily be property stock. It could be an investment. Invest in a company. If you know friends, pull together some money. And I'm like kind of preaching to myself because I'm the last one to do that. I'm very scared to take my own money and burn it. But again, thanks to Daren, I've watched his channel and he's taught me that I should be investing money that I'm ready to lose, right?
Yes.
So it's kind of like a savings, but maybe it doubles. Maybe I lose it, but I'm okay. I don't go and put all my money, of course. But maybe the money could double, and that's my mistake that I've not been doing. Right? I've been too afraid to take some risks, calculated risks, and I've not been making money out of it. So, for example, cryptocurrency, I played with it last year. I was telling Daren earlier, and I had opportunity to grow it like 5 times. But I only, bought and sold a little bit. Then after that, I exit. But I saw how it worked, and I should have invested more. And I'm not saying like put all your millions of dollars. I should have put like maybe a couple of hundreds of thousands if I can afford it, right? And then today it can be millions already. Yeah. But I didn't, so I lost out. Yeah?
2 years ago, when I didn't get into all of this, I used to have 200K Sing dollars just sitting in the bank. And I thought, that was good. I want to keep all that, build that cash and pay off my housing loan. And I think that education helps just for us to understand a better perspective. Invest in money that we can afford to lose. You call out earlier mindsets. So everyone should really consider what's your mindset, how comfortable you are. Some of us are going to trade and speculate, and it's okay. Some of us are going to invest in the long term. So I invest in long term mostly. And if let's say a company like Tesla, even if it loses 50% of its value, I'm at minus 150K, I'm still going to sleep fine because I truly believe in the fundamentals. It is a matter of when and not if in my mind. So invest in something you believe in, like Ed, he invests in property. Even though the demand in downtown CBD, like let's say a condo next to KLCC, the price may be stagnant or drop, it's not going to go to zero. Property is fundamentally something that people need. It will recover over time. The population in the country is growing quite rapidly still. So whether it's property, cryptocurrency, stocks, local or international, if you're a long-term investor, consider the fundamentals. As Ed mentioned, if the price of something you truly believe in drops, you only lose when you sell. So if you do not need the money, you have the power to keep on holding and let it grow over time. If you invest money that you need to pay your car loan next month, then sometimes we are forced to make tough or not great decisions. One last question. So you mentioned that your kids are still relatively young now. Imagine 10 years from now, they go to this thing called YouTube and they click on this episode and they see their father there. And what message about money would you like to share with your kids right now?
I think we don't have to wait 10 years. The kids, while they may be young, they have a very high level of understanding. They're very exposed to a lot of things. So the message is for now, or 10 years later, it's the same. I think money is a very useful tool, right? And the more you have of this tool, you can do greater things. And it can also be vice versa. You can also use the money to do worse things. So I think it's important to have a lot of this tool, especially if you want to do good for this world. The more you have, you can be an philanthropist and do better. But also, I think the danger is just to be very careful that we must not fall in love with the money in the sense that the actual money, and then it forces you to do bad things, like you want to steal or take money that's not yours. I think it's really to use it as a tool and to do good things, but you need it, right? So it's very important, but you shouldn't like completely love it until you lose yourself, whether you steal it or you take it from other people. But imagine if this tool is in the more hands of good people, then you can do more good things. So I want good people to get more money and get richer so that we can do better things for the world. So that's my message to my kids, Daren.
Thank you, Ed. Money is a tool that it should serve us. Some people say that money amplifies the good and the bad in people. This should be a tool that serves us and not us serving money. Like Ed mentioned, some rich people have passed during COVID. We are born with nothing. We will leave the world with nothing. Our legacy is not our money. It is what we do with it that matters. Ed, thank you for the insights, the perspectives, and just representing another voice in this channel. So for everyone else who've watched this far, share down in the comments below what resonated with you. What prompted a second thought in you? What's changed in your mindset? Subscribe to more interviews like this. I'll normally cover a range of topics from business, finance, mindsets. Thank you for staying here, and I'll see you in the next video.
Thank you, Daren.
Thank you.